Sam, why don't you come up? Good evening. I guess we're skipping tea, so we're really running late, and I'm going to keep this as brief as possible because I don't think someone like Sam really needs to be introduced to an audience like this, and some of you who may not be in advertising and will still know of Sam. I've known him for God knows how long, and I'm not going to give away my age, but he started his career at Sarabai's and Cadbury's, and I didn't know him then. The first time I met him is when he decided to move into the advertising agency business, and he was sitting at contract. Wasn't that your first agency job? Sitting in one corner and asking me why he should advertise at Business India. Thereafter, he moved to, I have to remind myself, to Mudra, and started Mudra. So that's right. And then Madison, and we all know Madison today and how big it's grown. It's over 30 billion rupee company, employing over 1,000 communication experts with offices in India, Sri Lanka, and Thailand. Not many of you may know that, I mean, if you Google Sam, you won't find that he's been president and chairman of practically every industry association that he could possibly be of. The 3As of I, the Audit Bureau of Circulation, the Ad Club Bombay, the IAA India chapter, the Advertising Standards Council of India, and the NRS. And as the only man, at least till January, in a family of 4, he's also very sensitive to women, I hope, at least. Welcome, Sam. Come on board.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Firoza, for that nice introduction. So now at least a little bit I know as to why I was chosen to speak here this afternoon. Actually, sometimes I wonder why this subject is of importance at all, because as some of you know, I'm surrounded by women at home, women in the office. I follow them like a lamb. I follow their advice. Whatever Firoza says, Monica says, I have to do. So I don't really know what this afternoon is really all about. The women everywhere, and they seem to control, dominate, tell us what to do. But nevertheless, I presume sometimes we advertising people go astray, so you do see that odd ad which gets everybody's shackles up. And that's why we have some of us in our wisdom way back in 1985 created something called ASCI, the Advertising Standards Council of India. It's a regulatory body, some of you may be surprised, set up not because somebody else told us to set it up, but we in advertising decided to set this body up because we realize that advertising is a powerful tool that can sort of shape consumer behavior, attitudes, opinions, and for that occasional oddball out ad, we needed to sort of regulate it. So let me tell you a little bit this afternoon about ASCI.
सर, ऐड सुनिए, इंटरव्यू, 5 आदमी, 1 लेडीज कैंडिडेट. पहला सवाल, आपका नाम, हसीना अपना बटन खोल देती है. एक्सपीरियंस, दूसरा बटन, अचीवमेंट्स, बटन, कंसल्ट. उसके हाथ में क्या है? अपॉइंटमेंट लेटर. मैडम घूम के कहती हैं, इंटरव्यू टिप्स चाहिए? spotjob.com. क्यों सर, कैसा लगा?
कुछ ठीक नहीं लगा ना. अगर कोई ऐड महिलाओं को अश्लीलता से दिखाता है तो कांटेक्ट कीजिए ASCI को.
So this ad ran a few years ago, and I am personally delighted to hear the findings today, because as you'll see, it's really, really unlikely for you to see something like this on Indian television today, and our research also seems to corroborate that. Now, ASCI is actually started, as I told you, way back in 1985. It's a completely voluntary, not-for-profit organization. It is funded 100% by the advertising community. It currently has over 350 members from advertisers, advertising agencies, media owners, and some allied professions. And we believe our membership would account for almost 80% or 70% of all advertising in India. And whilst ASCI is, of course, a body of members, actually ASCI's decisions are applicable on all. So those who are not our members, we try and use our persuasive powers. Very often in the past, some of you may have got a gentle call from me saying, we've sent you a letter, but we see your ad is still on air. Can you please look at it? It doesn't look good. We are a responsible lot of advertisers and things like that. And I think in 100% of the cases, let me tell you, all large, enlightened, respected advertisers follow ASCI's decision almost immediately without discussion or debate. Almost. So obviously our belief is that in our own self-enlightened interest, we want consumers to have confidence in our advertising. And so I want to assure everybody here that as advertising people, we genuinely believe that our success lies in the consumer's ability to have confidence in the advertising that they see all around us. Because in India, we spend 40,000 crores on advertising. What good would that money be if consumers said, this is only an ad, I'm not going to be influenced by it. So please believe you me, I think advertisers understand that advertising needs to be honest, credible, safe, and whatnot. Again, what we started in India is not just an India initiative. This is a global phenomena. Self-regulation bodies today must be existing in almost 100 countries. And a lot of things that when we started ASCI, we followed is the global norm. So, our code, the procedure for processing a complaint, seeking compliance, all these are based on best of global practices. How does ASCI work? It's a slightly complex structure. I may have been associated with ASCI for a very long time. That doesn't mean that I can personally decide to allow an ad, or I can personally decide based on my own whim and fancy to disapprove an ad. ASCI has a board of directors, but the board of directors actually runs like the, if I may say so, the parliament. But the real body that actually decides on ads in case there is a complaint is actually the judicial arm of ASCI, which we call the CCC. And the CCC now has 14 members, but the majority of those members are not advertising people. The majority of members of CCC who decide on advertising is not us. It's people from civil society, doctors, lawyers, ex-chief justice, a person from the census board, a lot of people from consumer organizations. We have CRI represented on the CCC, and people like that. And industry has a minority stake at that table. It's actually 8 and 6. In actual practice, if you go to see, it's a matter of some concern to us that I think it very often ends up with 8 or 7 and 3 and 4, because advertising people, they take a seat on the CCC and then they don't land up there. And now we just don't have one CCC, we have 2 separate CCCs, and each CCC meets twice a month. So there's a CCC meeting at our office in Tardev that is held every week. And it is actually Because of this, oops, sorry, I'll come to that later, but I may as well say it now. Because of this, what has happened, our processing time has come down from, I think, something like 42 days to 12 days now. Complain to ASCI and we'll have the decision out following due process in 12 days. This is something like, I believe, a global record. Nowhere else in the world does it happen so quickly and after following due process that even my friend Gitu Varma from Lever cannot fault. And it has her blessings, and it has the blessings of Lever, PNG, Racket, and you name it, whoever else, and they may privately not agree with ASCI's decision, but they all follow them and abide by them. So, also increasingly in the last few years, I must say, our government, however critical we may be of them at times, have been quick enough to recognize the sort of very critically important role that ASCI is playing. And they realize that the government would not be in a position to play such an objective and fair role. So they let ASCI be, and they are actually in the last 3 to 4 years empowering ASCI. So they are supporting ASCI. And how are they doing that? For example, a few years ago, they modified the cable TV rules to say that no ad that actually goes against the ASCII code can run on television. So in fact now, when it comes to television, we don't have to rely on our persuasive powers. If ASCII strikes down an ad, it cannot run on television as per law, because that's what the cable TV rules say. ASCI is also now a very important stakeholder in 2 very important interministerial committees, one set up by the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting, and the other which has more recently been set up by the Department of Consumer Affairs. And in fact, the ministry as well as the state FDA now does not directly decide on complaints regarding ads. It sends that complaint over to ASCI and waits for an ASCI decision. So the process has found widespread approval even at the government level. Now, just a little bit of detail for those of you interested. There are 4 basic principles of the ASCII code. The first one deals with honesty. Obviously, all ads have to be truthful and honest. The second principle is that of decency. No ad can cause widespread offense and be considered indecent or vulgar by society at large. Third is safety. Ads must not promote either products or any other action which is considered unsafe, especially when it comes to children and women. And fourth, also pertaining to within the industry, advertisements must be fair to competition. So, we have a set of rules that if you're going to attack your competitor, it has to be fair, it has to be complete. You cannot unfairly denigrate a competitor's product. So these are the 4 principles, and we have a small code which runs into 3 or 4 pages which further elaborate on these 4 principles. Again, in the last few years, there have been tremendous new developments at ASCI, and I'd just like to spend a minute each on some of these. What used to earlier happen is, ASCI used to act based on complaints, and we used to get about 200 or 300 complaints a year. And very often, when we moved around in society, somebody would say, oh, only 200 complaints amongst thousands and thousands of advertisements. And I saw that ad. That ad was very bad. But how come ASCI didn't bother about it? Well, we didn't bother about it because nobody complained. And if nobody complained, then actually that ad just continued. And we had a provision for suo motu complaint, but it wasn't really exercised. So a few years ago, what we did in collaboration with TAM, which runs an ADEX service, we went out and trained a few sort of people who now proactively scan the newspapers, and they scan television sets, and they see the majority of ads that are coming in newspapers and on television. And if they feel that that ad could possibly be violative of the code, then they actually send that ad to the ASCI secretariat. The secretariat takes a look at that ad and then decides to process it further. So this is what we call Nance, which has, I think, been a tremendous success, and I think has been a major step in ASCI's life and in controlling the quality of advertising and also adherence to our code. The second thing we started a few years ago is what we call suspension pending investigation. We started this at a time when it used to take us about 24 days to process a complaint. And let's say you saw an ad tonight on television that was extremely offensive, and it was obviously violative of the code. What do? We have to follow our process. We have to give the advertiser 8 days to respond, and what do? And there were one or two cases, glaring cases that came to our notice, and we were sort of helpless. We said, what can we do? So we decided to bring about this another concept, which we call SPI, suspension pending investigation. So if an ad is obviously violative, and if an ad is likely to cause grave and widespread offense, I think the chairman of ASCI, in consultation with one more person from the board or CCC, I forget, can take a decision to suspend the ad forthwith, and the ad will be stopped. And the full process will take place, and then whatever the decision would be followed. So, I think this has not really been used so much. I think in one stray instance it was used. We also have a thing called FTCC. This is more for our internal advertisers, and two of my friends are always using this, Lever and PNG. So, very often, quite a few of the complaints we get are from within the industry. And when it's within the industry, we try to sort of sort that out in a much faster, quicker, and amiable fashion. This is what we call FTCC. I won't bother you with the rules, but and that's also working extremely well for us. ASCI, as I told you, is now recognized by the cable TV rules of government. We are represented in government bodies. And another major development is, recently the government, the Department of Consumer Affairs, has been wanting to take an initiative and be seen as taking action against misleading ads. They consulted us, and I'm delighted to inform you that actually what the government decided is that whilst they will have a body for that, the actual deliberation on whether the ad contravenes the code or not will actually be left to ASCI. So all complaints, if you send a complaint today to the government of India, the government is going to send that complaint over to ASCI. ASCI will decide whether it is violative of the code, and the decision will go back to the government, and the government will then decide what corrective action should be taken. Also, a few years ago, for example, we have now started sector guidelines. So in addition to our code, when we find that there are a large number of ads which are sort of violative, and there are lots of gray areas. For example, let's say fairness creams were focus area some time ago, and there was a lot of deliberation or discussion on what is fine and what is not fine. And obviously a general code cannot specifically address all the nuances of fairness advertising. So we developed a special code, and when we develop a special code, we develop it in consultation with the industry. So we have a bind. So now we have a sector code for foods, we have a sector code for fairness creams, we have a sector code for automobiles and two-wheelers. As you know, there's a lot of brawah on advertising for four-wheelers. They are slightly dangerous sometimes at this. So we got the industry together and made them agree to a set of guidelines. So as I already mentioned this, reduced process time from 45 days to now 12 days. And I'm also delighted to tell you that ASCI, now being a member of ISA, which is a global body of self-regulators around the world, has won, I think, for 3 years in succession, a global award for whatever we are doing in India. And actually, global bodies in other countries are now trying to adopt some of these fantastic new things that we are doing here in India, because of which I think last year we again won the gold award. So, Mr. President, Indian associations are doing extremely well. ASCI wins global awards like the IAA, which also recently won a global award. So, one more round of claps for IAA. This is to give you an idea of how the complaints are going. So you can see that the complaints earlier in 2010 and 2011 were as low as sub 200. But now after we started Nance, that is ASCI themselves aggressively goes and picks out ads which we feel are wrong, we're now talking of a number of around 2,000. So also, we just don't leave it to the advertiser. For example, some time ago, Shweta and I went over to the INS and we spoke to the media barons there saying, look, I mean, some of these small ads that you're carrying on abortion and dieting and 100% placement for education and all, they're obviously wrong. Why do you carry them? So, we try to influence the media also to try and stop them rather than make them appear and then try and stop them. So let's specifically come to portrayal of women. Our ASCI code doesn't have something very directly on portrayal of women, but it does say that advertisements should contain nothing indecent, vulgar, especially in depiction of women, or nothing repulsive which is likely in light of generally prevailing standards of decency and propriety to cause grave or widespread offense. Now, remember the operative word here is widespread. Very often we get a complaint from two women who find a particular ad offensive. Now, obviously, every time two women find an ad offensive, we can't stop the ad. It must be seen to be widely offensive, and that is why we have that CCC, which consists of 8 mature, respectable people from civil society who are not in advertising. They are doctors, lawyers, judicial people, they are professionals. So they decide whether it is going to be offensive in a widespread way. And of course, ASCI also keeps in mind the Indian law. There is an Indian law on Indecent Representation of Women Prohibition Act, and its provisions are quite stringent. So ASCI and the CCC keeps this paragraph in mind when they're watching an ad. So I thought I'll give you a few examples of ads that ASCI has struck down. For example, this was an ad that was struck down. You know, Malaika Jaisi Hotel, Munni Jaise Rate. Now, you know, but ASCI struck it down. I've been asked to hurry up, so I think I won't. This is a woman maid who sort of, ASCI felt, was using her sexuality to influence the man of the house. And it was struck down.
Snapdeal.com पे लॉग ऑन करो और समर इलेक्ट्रॉनिक सेल में पूरे महीने पैसे बचाओ. Snapdeal.com, बचाते रहो.
So you can see that ASCI is reasonably severe sometimes. This was a complaint we had received, but we did not find this objectionable. ASCI said it's fine, it's tasteful, it's a calendar, and the CCC did not find anything wrong or objectionable in this. And of course, in chapter 3, again, we have a line which says you cannot run any ad that derides any race, caste, color, creed, gender, or nationality. So here again it gets caught. This is an ad that ASCI struck down recently. It was an ad. So you see also the best of advertisers sometimes may trip. This is an ad from Tata Titan. So it's not that their intention is to do something wrong, but sometimes it slips by. ASCI immediately swings into action and the ad is immediately stopped. In this case, it was immediately changed to the hoarding. It was a hoarding at, I think, Chemscon or this thing, and it was stopped. This was also, ASCI doesn't rule only on, print and television. This was again a calendar, and ASCI struck it down. It was a calendar by Images Bazaar. It was sent only to advertising agencies and photographers. But ASCI found it objectionable, and they struck it down. This is an ad actually where, the husband's mother is sort of blessing the bride to say, may you get a son. And the ad was struck down. Maybe I should show you this since you like it.
सौभाग्यवती भव, जुग जुग जियो, पुत्रवती भव.
पर दादी, इसकी क्या गारंटी है?
होते गारंटी चाहिए तो अराइज इन्वर्टर ला.
मिलेगी इंटेलिजेंट चार्जिंग सिस्टम की गारंटी, साइन वेव और सर्विस की गारंटी, अराइज इन्वर्टर और बैटरी की फुल रेंज पर. अब इंडिया बोलेगा.
Okay, I'll skip this fairness one, but I think I can't but help end on this one because I think I intend to work for a long, long time, and the way things are going, I fear that I'm going to attend another conference a few years down the line where I'll have to hold the flag for guys of my gender. Take a look at this ad.
Nice weather, na?
Yeah.
Orchids. Orchids कितने beautiful लगते हैं ना?
Yeah.
Speaking of orchids, bedroom की दीवारों को soothing ही रखते हैं. कोई purple सा shade लगाते हैं. तुम्हें क्या लगता है?
Yeah, cool.
Bright red या light pink? ज़्यादा रोमांटिक क्या लगेगा? तुम भी कोई सजेशन दो ना।
यार मोहम्मद रफ़ी सुनते हैं।
देखो, husbands are useless. इसीलिए log on to www.asianpaints.com. Click the Get Inspired link and browse through the inspiration wall to gather ideas for creating the right mood or theme in each room of your beautiful home. Simple hai.
So I found this ad actually offensive to me and my gender. But I have no one to complain to. Ladies, I think y'all can relax. We are looking at ASCI. We are doing a great job, I think, of looking after women portrayal. At least that's what we feel. There may be an occasional slip up, but we'll take care of that in future.